Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Star Wars Expanded Universe, narrated by Disney or Lucasfilm, whichever way you slice it. Legends. Still getting over COVID, but I'm going to split this video into two sections. However, it is one video. We have, just the peak of the EU. Clearly, nothing has ever surpassed or ever will. Nothing in Disney canon. Nothing in literature. Forget the Silmarillion. Forget Lord of the Rings. Forget Schindler's List in movies. Forget The Godfather. Forget all the wonderful things you can think about in this great world, the Bible. Nothing succeeds against these sets of books. What set of books would I be talking about today? Well, of course, it's Jedi Prince, which was a young adult series released around the same time as the Thrawn trilogy. So I'm going to do a little summary of all these books and just let you know what it's all about. So, starting with Jedi Prince, Book 1, Glove of Darth Vader. And just know that all of these are written by Paul and Hollis Davids. So, Kadon's prophecy. We learn about guys who aren't really mentioned that often, the prophets of the dark side. They believe in Kadon because Kadon can have visions of the future, and he knows whoever gets the glove of Darth Vader will not only inherit Darth Vader's power, but will become the next emperor to rule the Empire. Yeah. Also, all of these members, when talking to each other, say dark greetings because they're evil. And they have to say that, to, have a horrible day, have a horrible day, have a dark and despairing day, have an evil day filled with evil tidings, yeah, amazing, right? I know, you are shocked. They even call a conference a mofference. That's real. What else do we... The glove of Darth Vader is on Mon Calamari for some reason, so that's awesome. Now, we have someone who is claiming to be the true and rightful ruler of the Empire. Who is this? This is Triculus. What's up with Triculus? He has 3 eyes. He has eyes here and an eye in the middle of his forehead. And he's claiming to be, what's this? The son of the son of Palpatine, of the Emperor himself. And he is going to get the glove of Darth Vader to become the sole de facto ruler of this particular faction of the Empire. Yeah. Now, you're probably thinking, this is really silly and really stupid, and you'd be right, but it's wonderful. Though, you know what does help, surprisingly, and one of the previous things I talked about, which was Luke Skywalker and the Shadows over Mindor by Matthew Stover, it actually kind of retcons some things here, because it says, well, of course we follow the prophet Kadon, because everything he said has come to pass. He said the past 2 Death Stars would be destroyed, and they were, which means he can't be lying now. In Mindor, it says how Chronal / Shadowspawn / Black Hole was actually with them for a time. And Darkhold uses the dark to see the future. So while he was with them, Kadon was giving accurate prophecies. Chronal eventually left. The moment he left, all those prophecies stopped being true. So, and then there's also a source somewhere that says that, the prophets of the dark side are frauds. Like there's no actual magic or truth to anything they're saying. So Kadon is a charlatan. He found somebody that actually could do those things, used him. Well, wasn't really using him. Chronal was using him, but he got accurate information from him. And then Chronal left, got defeated by Luke Skywalker. He has nothing now. So now he's just making stuff up. Like the stuff about the Glove of Divine, he's just saying things. He's just making garbage up. But anyway, this series is really funny. What else do we got? We also learn that Triculus is not really the, son of the Emperor. He's lying, of course. He just wants to be on the throne. So he's making up the fact that he is the son of Emperor Palpatine. You're like, oh, well, that's good. That's a good retcon. At least it's fake, or it's not a retcon. At least it's a good explanation. At least it's not true. Palpatine doesn't have children, except that we learn who his true child is. Another three-eyed person called Triclops. He's really the son of Palpatine. But we'll get more into him in the future. He's just mentioned in this book. Anyway, they go to Mon Calamari. Adventures ensue. And Triculus vows revenge on Luke. That's basically it for that first story. Then we get to Book 2, The Lost City of the Jedi. So first off, this is actually a nice retcon, because in the Tales comics, everything's kind of like nuked. Not nuked, but everything's kind of like messed up where you leave off Yavin in the Tales comics. So while everything kind of regrew, the Jedi they built a temple underneath, the underneath Yavin, which is actually kind of nice connection there. Zoothberry pie. I just wanted to mention that, because there's also Zoothberry juice and stuff, because Obi-Wan leaves Luke a dream message saying he needs to go find the lost city of the Jedi. This is we get introduced to one of the most notorious and yet never ever talked about characters in the expanded universe. Ken something. We don't know his last name. Yes, you do, if you're watching this, or you probably do. But I'm going to save it till the book where it's mentioned. So Ken is 12, around 1 year after Endor. We're around 8 months to a year. So when thinking about that, think about him in the future, in New Jedi Order or Legacy era. How old he'd be. So much story, so much potential with this character. Anyway, you get endeared to Ken pretty quickly, I feel. I like Ken a lot. He has a droid with him called DJ-88, because it's the 90s, and DJs were cool, baby. Palpatine, our boy, Sheev. Just kidding, that's not his name, that's only in canon. He abandoned his son on Kessel. Now, I don't know if that's so in character with him or out of character, because you would think the thing is because he realized he had a son, and his son could one day surpass him in force power, and he was afraid of that, so he sent him to Kessel. But he could have just killed him, which also would have denied any of that happening. But I guess it's like the Robot Chicken special, where he's like, I didn't order you to kill the kids in the Jedi Temple. I thought we could, brainwash them. But you do you, Vader. So I guess in this instance, it was, Palpatine not being a complete and utter despicable person. The one and only time. I mean, he still sent him to Kessel, which is like the next worst thing, but... yeah. Also, Triculus falls in love just instantly with Leia because she's hot. And because she's hot, he burns the forest down. He burns Yavin because He saw the future and pulled a Jason. No, I'm just kidding. But you know, that happened. I'm telling you guys, this series is, you need to read it. It's it's, it's wonderful. Moving on though, we get to book 3, probably the best book in the whole series, which is Zorba, the Hutt's Revenge. Who is Zorba, you ask? Zorba is the father to Jabba. He's got a beard. He's got some dreadlocks, which we don't see any other Hutts with hair, but he has it. And he finds out that Princess Leia killed his son, and he wants revenge. Freaking loves Zorba. Zorba needs to be in more things. Where did Zorba go? Bring him back. Zorba takes over Cloud City. So Lando loses Cloud City to Zorba the Hutt. And this is why he'll go on to take over Hologram Fun World and later do the mining stuff that he's doing in the Thrawn trilogy. And by the end of the story, Triculus is put into carbonite. Book 4. Mission from Mount Yota. There's a school on Dagobah because that's something we should have. Because, you know, in John Whitman's Galaxy of Fear series, we didn't have cannibal children eating each other, or all the other dangerous monsters on Dagobah, but we should have a school there, and a rebel base there. Brilliant. But in this story, Triclops finally meets the heroes. And that's kind of the whole gist of this book, as we get introduced to Triclops. We learn a little bit about him in here. Then we get to Book 5, Queen of the Empire. We learn that Triclops is a Jekyll/Hyde sleeper agent character. Literally, get this. Triclops, the son of Palpatine, is a pacifist. Believes in peace, does not believe in the Empire. But when he falls asleep, he not only sleepwalks information to the Empire, but also is an evil mastermind who comes up with new plans and new weapon designs for the Empire. You would think I'm making this stuff up, but it's real. Then we have a genuinely really nice scene. It's cheesy, but I really enjoyed it. Which is that Han basically proposes to Leia. He proposes that they elope. And I just thought it was cute. And where do they go to elope? Hologram Fun World. Are they going to succeed in their mission? No, because Zorba gets wind that Leia is still alive, and other things ensue, and we get our climax. Read the books, guys. I don't want to tell you everything. They're only like 80 pages long. Just read them. Anyway, moving forward, we have Book 6, Prophets of the Dark Side. I also think I forgot to mention that there's a replica droid of Leia, but it's very not advanced, which I would say, you know, weird. But later on we got Shadows of the Empire with Guri, so it's fine. Wasn't anything great though. Prophets of the Dark Side though. All the cover art for these are amazing, by the way. This is the big revelation book. Who is Ken? You know, it seemed like they're trying to trick us for a little bit that maybe Ken was Obi-Wan Kenobi's son. Dun, dun, dun. But that's not the case. That is not Ken's backstory. It's so much more than that. Ken Palpatine is I guess I said it. Ken is a Palpatine. He is the son of Triclops and the grandson of Sheev himself, Ken Palpatine. But in his story, it kind of wraps everything up. There's still some loose threads, but Triculus is kind of gone. The Prophets of the Dark Side are kind of mostly taken care of. They did plan another 3 books, but considering how it ended, it's an okay ending to the official series, but there's still a lot of things left to be, expanded upon. Because obviously, this glorious 6-book series needed more, which we do have, in a sense, which I will get into. But I just want to say overall for this official series, these are really silly. These are not like Jude Watson's Jedi Apprentice or Jedi Quest, or even the Young Jedi Knights series, which are also fun. But this is just really silly, and it's a lot of fun. But if you're looking for something a little bit more serious, like Young Jedi Knights, even you won't get anything out of this. This series is very, very simple, very much for younger ages. That being said, I thought it was so much fun. But yeah, it leaves things off with Han and Leia going to get married. Contradiction! Contradiction! No, not really, because had the series been continued, one of the next books, book 7, would have been The Shadows of Obi-Wan, and the first thing would have done is, within the opening chapters, would have been the Empire messing with the wedding, messing up, because that's kind of a running theme throughout these 6 books, which is one of the highlights of it for me, was this kind of thematic theme that Han and Leia, they're a great couple. Everybody knows it from the movies and reading these stories. They know that Han and Leia should be together, but circumstances keep interrupting them. The military keeps getting in the way. Dark side stuff keeps getting in the way. Adventures keep getting in the way from these two finally getting together. So in the official story that they would have wrote, their wedding would have been disrupted because they don't officially actually get married until courtship. So, sorry. So, it's not really a contradiction, it's just that the series stopped. There's also, Ken had this big revelation, and there's a happy ending, but there's so much you could do moving forward from there with Ken Palpatine. You have somebody who's dealing with something very similar to Luke with family heritage. You could have done so much with that, but we didn't get anything more. That could have been the peak of the Jedi Academy, or not, the Jedi Prince series. And you know what? I think we get that, but not by official means. And this is where I get into the second part of the video, which I'll stop and then start again for this part after I've read all 3. These are not a part of the Disney canon. I'm going to say this every time I talk about one of these, and this is not a part of the EU continuity. Only if you headcanon it, which I don't like to do, but the EU's never getting continued. And even if it does, Jedi Prince is never being continued. Ever. But, bless his heart, a good friend online, Quality Autism you can find on YouTube, has made a trilogy to conclude the Jedi Prince series. Books 7, 8, and 9. He made a conclusion to it. And I can't wait to talk about it. No lie, I think it is better than the actual Jedi Prince series. I know. Hard to top, right? But yes, I will discuss that in the second half of this video. So, I will see you in a moment. Till then. Alright, we're here for the last part of this video. Now, again, I just want to put a disclaimer that these are not canon. I already said this in the first half of the video. But I also know the person who wrote this. I don't know them. I don't know Noah personally. Like, I haven't hung out with him in person because we live in different parts of the world. I do consider him a friend, though, So take that into account when I talk about this fiction. However, I'm trying to be as objective as possible. And just, if I didn't know Noah, how would I feel about this story on its own? Also, he's a great guy, but he can definitely be. I mean, maybe if I could hear his tone of voice all the time, but sometimes, in text messages, he can definitely come off a little rude. So, I mean, I don't mind bashing into him if I feel it's deserved. So we'll see going into this review. But today, I want to talk about his fan fiction on fanfiction.net, which you can find. You go on fanfiction.net and then search up author quality autism. You'll find it. Jedi Prince, book 7 to 9. Starting with book 7, Shadows of Obi-Wan, which is exactly what the actual authors would have dubbed this book had it come out. The book begins with introducing a new character that is probably the best addition, I think, to this series as a whole, which is Azrakul. Think like Malgus and Vader. It's more of a Vader mask without the helmet, and he's got like a hood. Also, if you know I forget the guy's name, but if you guys have played the Batman Arkham game, there's a certain guy who you can find on the rooftops who has like this hoodie. That's kind of what I envisioned. He I think he even has a similar name too, but that's what I envisioned, and that's what that was all about. In this story, it is pretty much right after the events of the official story. And the wedding that Han and Leia were going to have gets, broken into. The Empire shows up. We get Grand Admiral Makati. Now, I was concerned going into this that this would really affect my enjoyment, simply because I also enjoy Hand of Thrawn 45, who is another fan fiction writer. And again, my standards for fan fiction is that it does not contradict anything else within the actual canon. And so, then it was just an issue: are these two different, writers who are not talking one another going to contradict? And it surprisingly doesn't. I mean, Makati definitely comes off as more stereotypically evil in this story, but nothing he says or does is necessarily contradictory to the Hour of Judgment story that I talked about before. But, and he's still alive by the end of this story. So which leads right into most of the Hour of Judgment. He was in the corporate sector and then gets picked up by Izard and stuff to do some stuff. So it kind of flows pretty well. The only thing that would be a contradiction, kind of, is that there is no use of robot Ewoks anywhere, which we will get to. But I have to be honest. Noah characterizes Ken Palpatine better than the actual writers of Jedi Prince. In fact, I'm just going to get it all the way now. I like this fanfiction more than all of Jedi Prince. I mean it, legitimately. Noah, my biggest critique, I guess, would be that Noah's intention was to write it just like the people who wrote Jedi Prince. To have it to be just as silly, to have it be just as goofy, and to feel like those authors. And it doesn't. It feels like Noah. I mean, I haven't read anything else that Noah has done, because I think this is the only thing he's done besides a chronology that he's making. But this feels unique, set apart from the previous 6 books I've just read. He tries to write the same, but he ends up still writing better. The writing is better. The interactions, I think, are better. And overall, I just think the stories in this trilogy are significantly better. I'm not just saying this because he's my friend. I legitimately mean that I had more fun with this trilogy than I did with the entirety of the actual novels. But anyway, we move further on into the plot. La 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 la. Read the story yourself if you want to know everything. And the big climax of the story culminates at, what would you know? It's at the wheel from the Marvel Comics, which I thought was really great. And it was a really cool little connection there. And again, Azrakul, he's not like the biggest, baddest guy I've ever seen. This is still connected to a children's story, or a young adult story, but Noah makes it so he does seem a bit threatening. He may not be he's no Darth Vader by any means, but he's certainly not somebody that Luke can just like stomp, right? Like it does require some effort on Luke's part, which I appreciated. And then we get to Book 8, my personal favorite of the trilogy, which is Legacy of Doom. Lando has a droid factory on Endor. Also, nice Nagai reference. I did catch it. Also from the Marvel Comics. Lando decides he gave up on a hologram fun world after the events of the actual novels. And Zorba, of course, took Cloud City from Lando. So now he's trying his luck at making a toy factory filled with robot Ewoks. Yes, it's awesome. And they're called Legacies, which is a cool freaking name for them too. I actually saw a live stream where this idea was birthed. It was actually some of the credit has to be given to Matt Wilkins, because Noah was actually just talking to Matt about his idea for this book, and then they just started spitballing back and forth with one another, and as it went on, this story just kind of progressed, and you have just this really fun tale. Like it's so much fun, and it's actually written pretty great. Also, Noah writes Zorba really petty, and I love it. Like his original motivation was, sorry, I'm still getting over COVID. Leia killed my son, so I want revenge. That was originally his whole goal. Now he has Cloud City. Now he doesn't even really care about Leia. But you know what he wants to do? He wants to sabotage Lando's droid factory just because it's Lando. And it's just extremely petty, and I love it. And then the kind of climactic thing in this story is another reference. The big climax, or at least a good portion of this book. I mean, the climax is on Endor and on Mimban, because the characters kind of get split up. We have Ken and Luke on Mimban from, Splinter of the Mind's Eye. And then we have, Lando, Han, Chewie on Endor with the help of the robot Ewoks against the Imperial forces. But this will be my only legit criticism, I guess, of Noah's writing. Or I should say the references he does. When I read Hand of Thrawn 45's fanfiction, there's a lot of EU connections. A lot of them feel, I guess, a bit more subtle. But also, to play devil's advocate, this is also meant, as a young adult series in the vein of, the Jedi Prince. So maybe that's why it's more on the nose. But I guess that'd be my only critique. It's just like, Mimban. Remember Mimban? Mimban. Mimban. But at the same time, also Bantam did that. So maybe I'm convincing myself that it's not that much of a problem. I was just trying to find something to say negative about it, because I really have nothing. And that's about the best I can do. So Noah, you're doing fantastic. And then we move on to the finale. Book 9. Admirals Wrath. So this is the big finale with everything. All the storylines get wrapped up. The prophets of the dark side are basically obliterated. They're gone. Capiche. Goodbye. Zorba is, the beginning section of this book has Ken and Lando on Cloud City, and Lando's like, if we're going to play Sabacc again, but we're going to play fair and frickin' square this time. If I win, you gotta leave. If he wins, then he can do whatever he wants to Lando and whatever. So, but Lando wins. And he's like, oh, cool. Ken's like, oh, cool. So you're going to take back Cloud City? He's like, nah, I'm going to move on to other things. I I just felt I owed it to the people of Cloud City to make sure that Zorba wasn't the one in charge of them. And I just thought that was great. I thought that was that's another thing that I have to give props to. Not only does he actually make Ken, like I was reading Ken in the Jedi Prince books. He's fine. I didn't love Ken. I can see why they never touched him again. But then Noah writes this trilogy, and I'm like, I actively want more stories with Ken. Like, I want more of them, but it has to be Noah writing about him, or I'm not going to care about Ken. Because, you know, I don't want to be mean to the writers of Jedi Prince. They, you know, the standard back then was not to write like Jude Watson's Jedi Apprentice. So, you know, it was a very basic, fun, and absolutely silly story. And I mean, I had fun with it. I'm just saying, like, I didn't really vibe with Ken that much. Noah made me fall in love with Ken. Like, I want more stories with him now because of Noah. Um, but Lando Calrissian. I love that we get more Lando here because we don't have a lot of Lando stories moving forward. We got some more in the Bantam era, but then after that, Lando kind of fades away. And I think Noah writes Lando really well. So it's another props to you. But yeah, by the end, you know, it's sweet. Ken gets his father back, and they go to explore, you know, his mother's homeworld, just to, you know, experience that, and to go to Naboo to see some of his grandfather's origins, I guess. Kind of a soul-searching journey. But yeah, it's overall pretty great. And there's an epilogue, which is very reminiscent of Tales from Jabba's Palace. I don't feel like that was as necessary. It's probably the weakest part of the book for me, but it was, or the fan fiction for me, but it was fine. Anyway, guys, this video has been extremely long because I included both that and the actual books. But I sincerely think if you didn't like Jedi Prince, I still think you should read these fan fictions. If you do like Jedi Prince, then and love the EU, then you absolutely need to read these fan fictions. But anyway, that's about it, guys. See you next time.